As many of you probably already know, psychedelics appear to be the future of mental health. The war on drugs era of the 70s and 80s kind of put a halt to research on psychedelics, but luckily the 21st century has given birth to a new wave of promising research when it comes to helping those with depression, anxiety, PTSD, addiction, and numerous other psychological conditions. It is without a doubt that these substances will continue to become more and more widespread as the state of Oregon in the United States has recently legalized psilocybin therapy. Numerous cities around the world have also decriminalized psychedelics, and other regions within the country are expected to follow suit. That's also not to mention the number of countries in Europe where psychedelic therapy is completely legal. But anyway, I wanted to make this video to sort of give my vision of what I hope the future of psychedelics within society will be. In my last video, I talked about the history of psychedelics in modern society, so go watch that one if you haven't yet, because in a way this video is sort of a continuation of that one. It builds off the history of psychedelics and psychedelic research, and now from that, in this video, I'll give my opinion and speculate on what role I see these substances playing in the future, and I'll also give my vision of what I think society would be like if we had a healthy relationship with psychedelics. That is, they weren't demonized. There wasn't this horrible stigma around them, they weren't listed as a Schedule I drug, and that the masses genuinely realized that they have value, both therapeutically and philosophically. And of course, this video is purely speculation. I obviously can't predict the future, so don't think I'm telling you this will happen. It's just my own speculation and my own hopes of what could happen. So first off, what I undoubtedly think will happen is that slowly, over the next decade or two, with the continued research and continued results in clinical trials, as well as certain states within the USA beginning to legalize them in therapeutic settings, slowly but surely, the modern world will catch up and psychedelic therapy will become legal and will be a much more popular medicine in mental health. This will go a long way in helping those with treatment-resistant depression and anxiety, as well as those with PTSD, terminally ill cancer patients who are struggling to cope with their impending death, and also others with various other psychological disorders. Now, something that I do worry about, especially in the United States, because in the United States healthcare is privatized, is that because psychedelics only often require one or a few uses for the benefits to be attained, the healthcare corporations won't like them because that's much less profitable than having someone on a medication such as antidepressants, where the user has to keep taking them pretty much every single day. So hopefully that fact that they're less profitable doesn't delay their coming to light within society. But even if that does happen, I think their coming to light eventually is inevitable due to all the promising research and the beginning of the legalization of therapy that is already happening. So what I think will happen is that more and more of these therapy centers will open, the benefits of psychedelics will gradually reach the ears of the public as time goes on, and through this, the stigma around them eventually won't be so harsh anymore. I think it'll be kind of like the whole marijuana thing. Back in the heat of the war on drugs era, society at large demonized marijuana heavily. People were literally put behind a cage, and still are in some areas, just for possessing a small amount of substance. And now weed has become legal for recreational use, not just therapeutic use, in numerous countries, and is likely on its way to complete legalization in all of the United States within the next few years. So over time, it appears that society at large is waking up to the bullshit that the war on drugs was, and are becoming much more relaxed in their attitudes towards specific substances that clearly aren't all bad. So weed was first in that regard, and it looks like psychedelics very well could be next. But when it comes to psychedelics, I strongly believe there's more to them than helping with just a specific mental disorder such as depression or addiction. That's certainly a big part of them, but people who suffer from no mental illness whatsoever can also still attain profound benefit out of psychedelics. I personally view this coming of light of psychedelics in society through mental health as just the launching point for more groundbreaking changes that will stem from these substances. Because when it comes to psychedelics, we also have to acknowledge their philosophical value, not just their therapeutic value. And if you've ever heard someone like Joe Rogan or Terence McKenna, or maybe myself, talk about them, you might have heard stories about transcending the ego, transcending the body, transcending time and space, experiencing the afterlife, encountering entities, experiencing infinity. And it's this type of stuff, the philosophical stuff, that isn't talked about in the mainstream as much and really isn't taken seriously by many people at all. Science would be very quick to label such an experience as just a hallucination. And I think it's a big mistake to put up a strong line between the therapeutic nature and philosophical nature of psychedelics and say they're two completely different and separate things. And I actually have a video on my channel I made a while back, a very underrated video of mine, and it's called The Intertwined Therapeutic and Philosophical Nature of Psychedelics, and in that video I talk about how it's literally the philosophy that gives you the therapy during a trip. And it's easy for someone who has never done them for themselves and are just kind of studying psychedelics from afar without having any direct experience to not take the philosophical aspect of psychedelics seriously, because on these substances you're in a headspace where you can have experiences and can have insights in which it is literally impossible for someone in an everyday state of consciousness to conceive of or even imagine. It's like trying to tell a person who has never drank water before what water tastes like. You just can't really tell them what it's like. So I know for many terminally ill cancer patients who are struggling to cope with the fact that they're going to die soon, psychedelics are given to them as a treatment in order for them to cope with that. And what it does for them, and I read this in Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, is that it provides them with an experience of consciousness that is beyond the ego, beyond their identification with body, and that mystical experience reassures them that everything is okay, that there's much more to reality and existence than just this vessel right here. And for many patients, that allows them to cope with their impending death much more peacefully, and it's often the same mechanism for many people with depression, anxiety, addiction, etc. as well. It puts the individual into an altered state of consciousness, one in which their ego has a weaker grip on the mind, and often the recontextualization that gives the individual regarding their own self, others, life, and reality as a whole is enough to wake them up and knock them out of their state of suffering. And when the ego's grip is temporarily lessened or fades away completely, it allows the individual to experience a more non-dual state of awareness in which self and other, subject and object have merged, which opens the door for realizing what concepts such as enlightenment and oneness are, which are so much of what the spiritual world as well as Buddhism talks about. And I personally find it really unfair to just label any experiences of that nature as just a hallucination and thus not real at all, because it certainly appears to have a profound impact on the user, most often in a positive manner. So hopefully as time goes on, once the therapeutic value is known by the masses, the philosophical aspect will eventually start to be taken more seriously, because all philosophy is, at the end of the day, is the study of knowledge, existence, reality, etc. And psychedelics can give you a view on the inner workings of your own mind. They make you question everything, even obvious things. They blow everything you knew out of the water. You can experience things on psychedelics that seem like they should be impossible. You can experience things that language literally cannot describe whatsoever. So a big thing they did for me was they made me realize that our everyday state of awareness is just one state of consciousness in a vast ocean of all the possible states of consciousness, and that there's no reason to assume that the everyday sober human state is the absolute real state in which we can extract everything there is to know about reality from, because, well, human consciousness is a byproduct of evolution. We perceive reality the way we do because that's the way that best suits our survival. We can only perceive a small fraction of the electromagnetic scale with our perception, and other organisms will view reality in a completely different way because they have completely different sensory organs and have developed different survival strategies. So our brain is literally just a chemical soup. So I don't see how it's fair to say that whatever you experience when that soup is altered slightly is just a hallucination. And I think that insight into the vast ocean of all the different states of consciousness can literally change the entire paradigm we have regarding science and philosophy going forward, because right now mainstream science kind of assumes we can eventually learn everything there is to know about reality by just standing back and observing and measuring and calculating stuff. And you can certainly learn a lot in doing that, don't get me wrong, but I think what inevitably needs to happen if we're doing honest philosophy here is that the paradigm of direct experience needs to be introduced, because you can learn so much more about the mind, about consciousness, and about reality from altering your consciousness and having a direct first-hand experience of something that is beyond everyday human perception. So essentially what I'm saying from this video is that I vision both the therapeutic and philosophical value of psychedelics coming to light within society. The therapeutic value will come first, and we are already seeing this. Psychedelic therapy is slowly being legalized in many regions, and what I predict will happen is that it will eventually become a mainstream medicine in mental health, where it will be normal for individuals to undergo guided experiences with professional and licensed therapists and trip sitters, and then gradually, as the stigma around them lessens, as they become more widely available and known, society becomes more open-minded, etc., we'll eventually see people take the philosophical aspect of these substances more seriously. But I think it will take some time before society becomes open-minded enough for something like this to happen, because psychedelic experiences are very spiritual by nature. They deal with the divine. They deal with existence beyond the self, and a lot of people in today's world are so rigid in their beliefs, even many atheists are, that they can't even begin to entertain psychedelics being something that legitimately could help us answer questions in this domain. For dogmatic religious people, anything that conflicts with their worldview, they'll likely just call the devil, so they'll probably call psychedelics the devil and not want them to come to light within society. So I do think it will take some time before people take the philosophical value of psychedelics seriously, but luckily, throughout history, society has continued to become more and more open-minded as time has gone on, so that is great. And of course, when dealing with any substance, and I'm not just talking about psychedelics here, but any sort of drug, the people need to be educated on them. Currently in our education system, at least in America, they kind of just tell you, oh, don't do drugs, all drugs are bad, don't do drugs, and they don't tell you any more. Their goal is to just scare you away from ever trying any substance, and well, yeah, I mean, certainly it's not ideal for teenagers, or anyone for that matter, to be doing a bunch of drugs. It's a given that a lot of people will do them anyway, so why not put proper drug education in the curriculum, that is, teach high schoolers about the effects of different drugs, and then also the safest ways to consume them in order to minimize harm reduction, because if you know it's a given that people are going to be using substances and you actually care about their well-being, you'd at least want them to be properly educated. And also another high consciousness thing society could do to minimize harm reduction is to have facilities where anyone who would like to can pick up a drug testing kit, ideally for free or at least a very low price, completely discreet, no questions asked, so that if someone is going to be doing a drug, then at least they are able to test it so that they know they aren't getting some fake bullshit off the street laced with 10 different chemicals that could kill you. So I definitely think drug education needs to be a lot better. Personally, I believe in the decriminalization of all drugs, but that is a topic for another video. But really what I said here is all I want to say. When I was writing the script for this video, I kind of just let my mind run, not much of a filter, but I hope you enjoyed my vision on what the relationship humanity has with psychedelics in the future could look like. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think the future psychedelics holds? And if you wish to support my work on a deeper level and have a few extra dollars to shell out, I do have a Patreon. I always love getting new supporters on there. It's a major motivator for me to keep doing this kind of stuff. And yeah, guys, and as always, guys, have a great day and peace.